I met with Laura, who shared with me how her battle with anxiety ended when she discovered complementary therapy that worked for her. So Laura, complementary therapy for you has been so powerful that you've decided to become qualified in emotional freedom technique, or tapping as it's sometimes referred to, isn't it? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I've, over the past couple of years, experienced and tried a lot of different complementary therapies, some of which were more gentle, some of which more powerful, and having EFT's kind of always been in the background. And then obviously I came to yourself for EFT, and I don't think I've ever had such a powerful transformation.
As you mentioned, there are lots of complementary therapies, and complementary therapy sometimes gets a reputation as being a little bit out there, a little bit woo-woo, and there are certain complementary therapies that are a little bit more esoterical. And you were somebody that was more scientifically minded. So for people that are looking to get complementary therapy as a way of treating mental health, what would you say to encourage them to make that leap?
Well, if I can talk about my most recent experience, I've had anxiety on and off most of my life, but I've always been instinctively aware that it isn't integral within me. It was from an outside force that brought that anxiety on. It wasn't, I didn't ever feel right saying it's just your chemistry. It never kind of felt right for me. But this is, you're talking 20 years journey for me, really. And then more recently, I had a very traumatic incident with my son, which resulted in me coming into this phase of anxiety that I've never experienced before. It was debilitating. It was raw. It was really very scary for me because it was a place I'd never been before. So there was a few days in bed and a few days thinking, oh God, well, you know, I'm going to try and do this on my own, etc. I've got 2 young children, so I haven't got that ability to just, you know, have that time. So I did go to the GP, who really wanted to help, genuinely wanted to help, was coming from a very good place, prescribed me antidepressants, also gave me diazepam to help while the antidepressants kicked in, said it's anxiety. Some people have anxiety all their life. It comes in waves. It can have bad bouts. Good, you know, you can be, because I said I lost most of the time. I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. And I was referred to the intensive home treatment team, who you're on your phone line to 24 hours a day, which was fabulous. It was really good care. What she did say was, I would recommend, for the sake of yourself and the sake of your family, that you stay on these, because obviously you're someone that's just susceptible to anxiety, etc. Which, you know, obviously you don't want to hear, and especially I don't want to hear. So I went away, took the tablets, started to feel a little bit better, but it didn't go away. There was something, I was back to a functioning level, but there was something within me that was just, there's something not right. There's something really not right. I saw 4 doctors over this time. I saw a psychotherapist who also said it's anxiety. All these people were great people, doing their job, doing their best, coming from a very genuine place, so I'm not dismissing the work they do. But instinctually, I just knew it wasn't getting to the core of what the problem was. EFT kept coming up, and I thought, right, it's something I can do. I can go and see someone for, but it's also a practical tool that I can carry anywhere, and I don't have to take time out. I can just, you know, do it. So I thought, right, I'm going to look at EFT. So I googled EFT Edinburgh, and yourself came up. So we had a very brief conversation on the phone, And I remember you saying within about under a minute, you mentioned post-traumatic stress disorder. And I dismissed it. I thought that's something really serious. That's something veterans get or something. So our telephone conversation was cut short thanks to my children. So I went away, and then it just started ticking away in the back of my mind. I thought, Then I did some look around on the internet at the symptoms, etc. And I just thought, she's right. It's post-traumatic stress disorder, which is why I've never experienced anything like this before and why I'm feeling like I am. The thing for me is that everything you said was so practical. It made sense. It was accessible to me because the first thing you did was show me how the brain worked, which I've got a bit of knowledge about anyway, but how we hold our emotions, how we hold our feelings, and especially when you're talking about specific traumatic events, how the body and the brain holds that event. And because I'd been through it, it just made perfect sense to me. And it was just the most shifting experience I've had.
So in, I think, 3 sessions, you've completely overcome your anxiety, haven't you?
All my life I've had anxiety, low level, which has, I've been functioning fine, but I think you add constraints to your life. So you think, I'm not going to push that, I'm not going to push that. And I remember coming back to you saying, my life's always felt in black and white. And all of a sudden, it just felt, as cheesy as it sounds, it felt like there was colour to my life. All these options were open to me. It was something I didn't feel I needed to hold control of all the time. It was a very freeing experience, and it was so quick and so practical and so powerful and empowering at the same time. The doctors I saw with the NHS were fabulous. They within what they would, their constraints, they were great, but they can only do so much. And I found that a lot of their training, or a lot of, it was all to do with pharmaceuticals. It was all to do with what can they prescribe. It wasn't to do with a holistic view of, well, let's sit back and think, why are you stressed? Where's this come from? Let's get to the core of this. And once you introduce the complementary therapies, what they do, they scratch away at the surface, and they invite you to be curious about what more can come along. What more can I do? Well, if that's worked, maybe I could look at this. Maybe I could look at what I am, those 5 Cokes a day that I'm drinking, how is that affecting my, my anxiety, etc. So it invites self-care and invites responsibility, which going to the doctors and getting a prescription doesn't.
And you talk about the gut, which is a really important point, because there's a real, not necessarily lack of understanding, there's a lack of education about the role that mood and food play on one another. And if your gut's on in a healthy place, your brain's not going to be in a healthy place, which I know you recognise because you've got some background training in nutritional therapy. Again, what difference do you think it will make to the NHS to have people who go along to their GP to get help with mental illness to have access to nutritional therapists?
It will be huge. I think, if I'm right in saying, I think doctors with their training get, I think it's 3 days on average nutritional training, and the generation before us were guided by their doctors on what they eat, and we've come a long way since then with processed foods and sugar, etc. And I don't think the majority has caught up yet with the impact this is having on our mental health, because it's not an instant disease. As soon as we drink something, we don't think it's doing us any harm, because we don't see that it's chipping away slowly within our gut function, which affects all of our hormones. So I think having somebody there within the doctor's surgery that the doctor can say, okay, I think you could benefit from talking to this person here who's trained up, knows what they're talking about, is passionate about what they're talking about. So for the doctor's point of view, there's nothing more added to them, but they're giving a more holistic service, and then they're educating people. And once that person knows the benefits of eliminating certain foods and introducing certain foods, that causes a ripple effect within their family, within the community. It can only be a good thing.
So thinking about complementary therapy as prevention over cure, what difference do you think complementary therapy, when it is more readily accessible on the NHS, can do to play a part in preventing mental illness in the long run?
Yeah, I think I think being able to go along and see a complementary therapist, again, I think it invites you to have some breathing space and actually tune in with how you're feeling and what's going on with your life, so you can actually implement changes before it gets too far ahead. I think a lot of the time we wait till we're at breaking point to see the doctor to go on medication, where if we knew there was an intermediary where, okay, medication's over there, but in the meantime let's just pop you down this avenue and see what we can do on that side of things, it can give you the tools to be aware of what's going on, to watch what your danger points are, and just make you more accountable to say, well, what is going on with my life? There's obviously something's not right.
And we're told again by ministers in Parliament that Scotland's spending £40 million a year on antidepressants alone, and that people that are looking for help are subject often to 2-year waiting lists in some parts of Scotland. So when complementary therapy is more readily accessible, what do you think that will do to change and transform the state of the mental health crisis that we currently face in Scotland?
I think, again, it comes down to accountability and being able to start relying on yourself to find different ways of coping and to make changes. I think taking the blinkers off, which I think taking medication tends to keep the blinkers on. People just think, oh, well, I've got a pill for that, well, that'll give me that symptoms, but there's a pill for that and there's a pill for that. And it's kind of waking up to the fact that at the end of the day we are all human beings, and even people that make the pills are human beings. So there's only so far pills can do so much, but they're not miracle workers. And being able to access complementary therapy, again, it's empowering people to look after themselves, and I think that's where we're missing the link. We're just reliant on just jumping straight to the doctors when anything goes wrong, and obviously there's a place for that, and I recognise that, but there's a lot. We haven't caught up with how our society has now developed, and that's nutritionally, but it's also to do with social media, how we're living, the communities are breaking down, etc. So we're all living much more isolated lives, and we've lost that route into recognising that we can actually start helping ourselves again a bit more, and that it brings people together. Because when I was feeling ill, I decided I wasn't going to be ashamed of it. I wasn't going to be embarrassed about it. I openly told people about it, and a lot of people, oh, I felt a bit like that. Take the shame away from it. We're all trying to function at these such high levels that are most of the time unattainable. So it's opened up my horizon. I'm going to train in the EFT because I can't experience this and not pay it forward. it's too valuable. So yes, I'm going to begin with the EFT, and I'm going to take it slowly because I've got 2 young children and a husband, and I've got a family, you know. So I'm going to take it little by little, and then I can see possibly hypnotherapy being in there. It's an open book. So I'm really looking forward towards the future now.